welcome to another episode of Ecoville, your weekly podcast that promotes environmental conservation. I'm your host, Nosigelelo Kwaka. The rainy season is upon us in Zimbabwe and the farming season has truly begun. It's important to note that studies say the agricultural sector is contributing 24% to greenhouse gas emissions through agricultural activities. The Smallholder Irrigation Revitalization Program is a program funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, OPEC Fund for International Development, and the government of Zimbabwe, which contributes to the resilience of smallholder farming communities. Its goal is to reduce vulnerability of smallholder farmers to food and nutrition insecurity, climate change effects, and economic shocks. Today on the program, we're joined by the organization's monitoring and evaluation specialist, Nolyn Berejena, to discuss resilience building. Welcome to the program, Nolyn.
Thank you very much, Nonsikelelo. Thank you.
Okay. Our first question is, please tell us about your organization and the agricultural work you are focused on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nonsikelelo. The Smallholder Irrigation Revitalization Program is a $51 million program, as you highlighted, and it's funded by IFAD. We got a grant from IFAD and the OPEC Fund for International Development, the government of Zimbabwe, and also beneficiaries. The program in general seeks to reduce vulnerability of smallholder farmers to food and nutrition insecurity, climate change effects, and economic shocks. So the main components of the program are two subcomponents which are mutually reinforcing. We've got the first component which looks at sustainable smallholder irrigation development. And this component really focuses mainly on the rehabilitation and expansion of irrigation infrastructure and also promoting improved smallholder irrigation management. Then we have our second component, which is called the climate smart agriculture and market access. And why we have this one, we are saying that once we have rehabilitated our schemes, we need to increase farm competitiveness and profitability. And we do this by promoting good agricultural practices, climate smart agriculture practices, promoting value addition, improve natural resource management. And also under this component, that's when we also look at improving access to markets and raw financial services, and also enhance capacity of the farmers through different trainings. Why we have these two components, over the past years, you find out rehabilitation has just focused on just fixing canals, and there has been a missing gap or a missing link. So in this case, we believe that we're providing a complete package that will transform the whole irrigation system. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that breakdown, because it gives us an understanding of the work that you're doing. As I said in the introduction, today we're focusing on resilience building in agriculture. Can you please give us a breakdown and an explanation of what resilience building in agriculture actually means, or what it entails?
Okay. When we talk about resilience building, we're really looking at the ability of a system or a community or a society when it has been exposed to hazards or shocks, its ability to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt, transform, and recover from the effects of the hazard. And it's very important for a system to be resilient. It must be in a timely and efficient manner. So we are really looking at improving the absorptive capacity of households, and also its adaptive capacity and the transformative capacity of the rural households. Thank you.
Okay, so from what you said, and my own understanding is right now we can say one of the biggest shocks or one of the biggest hurdles that farmers are facing is change of weather patterns through climate change, right? So
Yes.
what you want to assist farmers with is the ability to adapt to such changes. Is that what resilience building is about?
Yes. So we want them, the first thing when you have a shock, they have to be able to absorb it,
Mm-hmm.
so to cope with it. And then after that, they can also actually adapt and they can actually transform. So, for example, when you talk about transformative capacity, it's a situation where we improve issues that relate to governance, access to infrastructure, maybe natural resource, and issues that relate to policy. So you're actually almost transforming the whole system such that even when the shock comes, we are ready for it. You can actually resist it and absorb it.
Okay. So how does resilient building contribute to increased food and nutrition security?
Thank you very much. So you find out with increased resilience building, we in this case we look at different areas. For example, within our program, we look at climate smart agriculture, where we are promoting increased productivity, and in so doing, the households can actually they can produce more from a small piece of land. For example, the current Fumvudza, which has been promoted, and also we also promote crop diversification and also adoption of new technologies, practices, and land under improved management. So with all these, the production and productivity of households is improved. And in so doing, you find out who all the households will be able to adapt or even absorb any shocks that they experience along the way. Even when the climate, when we have droughts, they are able to adapt quickly. Thank you.
Okay. So what's the environmental benefit of resilient building?
You find out with a resilient community, it actually improves natural resource management, because you are looking at all the social capitals of a household. So when they are able to absorb shocks, it means they don't carry out adverse behaviors, so that they deal with so that they deal with the shocks. I want to take an example of, let's say, farmers are depending mainly on cropping, on agriculture production only. So if we have a shock in the system, they can actually go into adverse activities, such as cutting down of firewood so that they get income. But when the system is actually well adapted, no matter if the shock comes, they have got other income generating activities that will assist them to deal with the sudden shock. And also you find out it actually assists farmers to preserve the environment for the future generations. Farmers will not be just looking at the current situation, but when a system is resilient, they've actually considered the future generations.
Oh, okay. So it's good to know that you also get like environmental benefits from everything, from resilience building, eh?
Yes, it's
Okay.
very true.
All right. So your program is in its fifth year. Do you think you have been able to contribute to resilience building in Zimbabwe's agricultural sector? If yes, where have you been able to successfully implement these programs?
Okay, thank you very much for that one. I would like to say that the greatest challenge that we had as a program was that we had a slow start. And
Mm-hmm.
also, our program really focuses on infrastructure development. And infrastructure development, particularly the irrigation schemes, takes a bit of time. It's not like a one-day thing. But however, I'd like to say now that we have started rehabilitation, we now have got 986 hectares of land that is under irrigation in Matabeleland South, Midlands, Manicaland, and Mashingo. And you find out now these households are able to irrigate. Even if there is a drought, it means they are able to, despite the changes in the weather patterns, they're able to irrigate. And also, we have also improved the transformative capacity of the households by providing them with training. To date, we have managed to train close to 9,000 farmers in different aspects of crop production, natural resource management, farming as a business, gender mainstreaming, and in so doing, you find out that it has started to show impact on households. If you take, for example, we actually did a survey on just to see what has been the impact on the yield levels, and we've actually seen about 45% of the households, in some cases actually within a year, saying that their yields have actually increased, and in some cases the yields levels have actually doubled or if not trebled. So you find out we have started seeing the impact of these changes. Thank you.
Okay, so if I'm understanding it, resilience is about building a self-sustaining system from the beginning, which is the farming, the planting, up to the end, which is the market for the crops. So, how are you assisting farmers with getting a market for their crops? Because if they have an income, I think it strengthens the resilience program.
Okay, so you find out our program really is more of a market-oriented production system. So when we say market-oriented, we're saying before they actually start producing, they have to do almost like a value chain analysis to understand which crop should we grow, which is the most profitable crop, and which one is almost like a demand-driven production system. And because we are trying to move away from subsistence farming, and we are going towards a commercialization drive. So you find out with this, we're actually promoting commercialization of agriculture, look at profitable value chains, move away from move away from crops with low profits. And then in so doing, we also encourage smart partnerships, for example, partnering with other service providers who are actually into the production of those crops. And also we promote value addition, just not to look at the raw crop on its own, but we are actually promoting the farmers, encouraging the farmers to put value to value add their crop. And also we also do capacity development. In this case, we do trainings like farming as a business, exchange visits, where the actual farmers go to centers of excellence and they get to learn, get to see other best practices. We encourage farmers to do market research. Our approach really, we are saying we want to leave a farmer that is able to do something when the program leaves. So we play more of a facilitation role. Thank you.
All right. So in sticking with that, how you're assisting farmers from the beginning to the end, I just wanted you to give us like a solid example of, okay, this is a project, this is the plants that we have encouraged them, as we've seen that we've done our research on the whole value, and this is what they've managed to do from the beginning to the end. This is our project X, and this is what we've managed to do with project X with Y plant.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take an example of Rupangwana irrigation scheme. Initially, when we joined the program, when the program started, they were only irrigating about about 2 hectares of land. So we did a value chain analysis, and also we did what we call a feasibility study. And we've managed to rehabilitate the first phase, which of Rupangwana, which is about 12 hectares. And the farmers were able to put approximately 8 hectares under bean production. And they entered into a partnership with an organization called PHI. And you find out the farmers in this case, they managed to harvest about 1.48 tons per farmer. And from that, they were able to sell approximately 8 tons of beans, and they made a revenue of close to 12,000 US dollars from that intervention that they did.
So clearly we can see successes if you actually start from the beginning with the farmer, assisting them up until the end when they
Yes.
sell their products. Okay, so how are you measuring resilience in your programs?
Okay, thank you very much. In terms of measuring resilience, we use what we call the multi-poverty assessment tool. The multi-poverty assessment tool looks at about 11 indicators which measure issues that relate to rural assets, exposure, equity, and also the fundamental needs. So it starts by looking at the fundamental needs of a household in terms of food and nutrition, security, domestic water supply, healthcare, sanitation, housing, education, farm assets, non-farm assets, exposure to and resilience to shock, and gender and social equity issues. So when we start our project, we first look at where are we in terms of all these dimensions. Then at mid-term, again, we start to measure, because there is, from this multi-poverty assessment tool, we have, for each indicator, we have a scale of between 1 to 10. So the aim of the project in general is to move above a 7. Once we are above 7, then we know that we are actually moving towards resilience. So that is the main tool that we use.
Okay. So what challenges are you facing in attaining your resilience goal?
I think the main, the ever-changing macro environment as we're starting our project. You find out such as inflation, multi-currency, you find out all these have resulted in price disparities as we implement our projects. And also in the beginning, I would like to give, for example, when we started, it was 1:1, and we always encourage farmer contribution, because we believe that for a program to be sustainable, farmers have to contribute. They have to own the program. However, for example, if they saved in 2016 $10,000, now after the multi-currency was introduced, that money was actually eroded by inflation. So you find out it sort of dampens the spirit of this household that you're trying to build resilience, for them to start understanding the importance of farmer contributions, the importance of savings and stuff like that. However, to mitigate this, now we have said that farmers have to contribute or have to save in US dollar, a currency that is much more stable. That way they are not affected. And also you find out we've been highly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It has not spared us. In terms, you find out our program really focuses on capacity building of the farmers. And because of COVID-19 regulations, we are unable to to meet as a tea with the farmers and stuff like that. However, to mitigate this again, we have decided to go online, to do radio programs, and also to do a lot of social media and stuff like that to mitigate the effects of COVID, and also SMS blasts, so that at least we can reach out to our different farmers. And also, we find that COVID-19 has also affected farmers' access to markets, and affected even the companies that are supposed to be buying the products from our farmers. So we are actually in the process of encouraging alternative marketing strategies.
Okay, one thing that really stood out for me was with every challenge you brought a solution, which is what I think every program should be focused on. It wasn't just challenges. If it's a challenge, then you presented a solution, which I believe your organization is actually doing good in mitigating all these problems.
Thank you very much. We are trying.
And then and then when confronted with changing weather patterns or an extreme weather event, a resilient farm has more capacity to avoid or reduce physical and financial damage than farms using conventional management practices. How true is that statement?
This is a very true statement. As I said earlier on, you want to build a household that is able to resist and absorb all these changes. So once the household is resilient, it means that when a shock comes, it's able to absorb. Let me give you an example. For example, this is farmer X. Because his absorptive capacity has been improved, maybe he's part of an ISAL group or has got climate smart agriculture. When a drought comes, they won't engage into negative coping strategies like selling their cows, taking children out of school and stuff like that. What they'll do now with the money from internal savings, they are able to absorb that cost, and they can buy food from elsewhere. Whereas a household that maybe did not have any savings in place, it means when the shock comes, what do? One, they will decide to either sell the cow because they did not have any savings. They will decide to sell maybe their assets because they were not ready for it. So you find out, and they are not able to absorb those shocks. And also in the process of adapting, you find out as they know, with more information, as we're training the farmers about issues of these changes that are happening, or climate change and stuff like that, they start to adapt. For example, they can diversify their livelihoods. That this year crop production won't work well for me. Let me focus on my livestock production. Okay, that's not working. Let me also focus on, maybe, for example, we do training on PPE making. We've got poultry projects, beekeeping. So they will say, okay, fine, this year the crops have failed me, but I can actually do beekeeping, has not been affected that much. So you find out that household it can actually adapt easily.
All right. So do you think your organization has been able to convince Zimbabwean farmers to adopt climate smart agricultural methods?
I think we are starting to see that change within the different communities where we are working. I would like to say adoption is a process. So it's not an overnight event. So with the continued promotion of climate smart agriculture, and also when they start to see the impacts and the effects of climate smart agriculture, farmers will start to adopt. I would like to take, for example, we are promoting what we call commercial demos. And this way we are saying, let a farmer see how profitable it is to engage in a particular intervention. And that way, for example, we've got two-wheelers, we've got Ifumbuza, we do it more of a commercial demo so that the farmer can actually see the profitability. And once they see the profitability, they start to adapt. And also we believe in tailor-making innovations to the environment, to that particular community that you are working with, rather than just importing a technology and imposing it. I'll take, for example, we were at Mayoka irrigation scheme where they are using the sprinkler system, and we got all the farmers together, and we actually, the women too, and we asked them which is the best facility that they preferred for sprinkling for their irrigation system, and actually they were able to select what fits them best. And also, we also believe in incorporating a gender lens in whatever intervention that we are promoting. For example, now we have been installing solar-powered gardens where we are moving away from the bush pump, which was heavier. So now the farmers are so happy with the solar-powered irrigation system, because it has made the workload easier. And also the other issue is promoting low-cost technologies.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've brought in a very interesting aspect, which is that of gender, because in a non-resilient system, I think, especially in the Zimbabwean setting, I'll speak about that, women are most affected. So how is your program assisting so that women are not affected by maybe climate change or these economic shocks?
Okay, so for us, we always say our policy is leaving no one behind. So meaning that we every inclusive development. So to ensure that we are using a methodology called the Gender Action Learning System approach. So with this gender action learning system approach, it tries to address the underlying causes of inequality within the household. And so you find out with these methodologies, you bring couples together, and when you bring these couples together, you train them, or you teach them how to set their visions. You teach them how to identify the constraints. You actually, the whole thing about this approach is that everyone is important in the household. The men are equally important. The women are equally important. So they address their problems as a family, as not as individuals. So that's the approach that we are using as a program. Okay. And also to make to address some of the issues that pertain to gender, we did like almost a baseline study, and what we called also the gateway study, where we are looking at the different gender dynamics in a household, the major gender constraints that are within a household, and based on those results, we start to develop programs or interventions that address them. For example, in terms of women, what we noted was the workload was high. The workload on women was heavy. So now as a program, we're identifying labor-saving technologies. We also realized that group participation was low. So we are now introducing groups like women PPE groups so that women can actually participate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have one last question for you. I believe this is a 7-year program, right?
Yes.
And currently it's in its 5th year.
Yes, we are in our 5th year.
So I wanted to ask, by the 7th year, what do you think you would have contributed to resilience in farming?
Okay, thank you very much on that one. As our target is to have about close to 6,100 hectares of land under rehabilitation. And that means that we'll be able to reach close to about 10,000 farmers who are irrigating and about 17,500 farmers. Our program does not look at irrigators on their own, but it also looks at the rain-fed farmers who are surrounding them. So we target both farmers. So we are hoping by the end of the program we would have reached 27,500 households, and these households will be able to produce for themselves. There will be food. These will be food secure households.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nolyn, for coming to the program.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope I was able to contribute positively.
You absolutely were, and you're able to give us such an insight into resilience building in the agricultural sector.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you again to all our listeners. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us on our social media pages. Our handle is EcoVilleZW on all platforms. Join us next week for another episode. I'm your host, Nosigelelo Kwaka.